I finally just threw the statins in the trash, and the difference in 3 days with my brain fog was, I couldn't believe it. So that made me research more. And I'm like, there's got to be more than this. So I started doing a lot of research, and this way of eating to me has been an absolute miracle. That's the only way I can describe it. You can't really even describe it to other people talking to them, because I think they think that I'm crazy or in dementia or something, because you can't explain to people how well they can feel. They just, until they feel it, they can't grasp it.
Is that how you say it, by the way, Lycia? Did I correctly pronounce that? Or
it's Lycia.
I'm sorry, Lycia.
No, that's okay. It's a very difficult name.
Well, there's a couple ways.
People.
There's a couple ways you can go with that, I think. Lycia. Okay, Lycia, where are you located?
Yeah.
Where are you located, Lycia?
I live in Newport Richey, Florida.
Well, tell us. Well, go ahead and let's start getting chatting. Let's talk about what's going on with you. And I know you have a success story you'd like to share. So tell us a little about your background and where you came from, where you are.
Well, I was born in Newport Richey. I'm 5th generation born here. So this is basically where I'm from. I hired, obviously we had our own business hired, but I live with my husband, and we have a 49-year-old mentally handicapped son that lives with us. And we just try to live life the best we can and enjoy things that we do. We ride motorcycles and travel as much as we can.
Okay. So, and like most of us just try to get the most out of life that we can. So what, I mean, I guess you made some kind of dietary shifts at some point, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Well, what was it, for a health issue for yourself or someone in the family, or what happened there?
It was for health reasons. I was raised on basically farm, eating fresh beef all the time and vegetables, quite a lot of vegetables. And as I got heavier, but at one point when we joined the gym, the trainer we were working with convinced us that the low fat diet was the way to go. So we did do that. And, which, basically was always hungry, never was satisfied. And then as my health started not really to fail, but decline as I got older, the doctor convinced me that with my age and the risk of heart attack, I should be on a statin. That was 13 years ago. Mm-hmm. So between the low-fat diet and the statins, when my health really started I could see a decline. I got into, of course, having a handicapped son is very stressful. Our life is everyday stress. We live with stress, but that's our life, and that's okay. But I got into severe depression. I couldn't understand why. I couldn't figure out why. I had really no reason to be depressed, to the point that she kept upping my medication, and she finally said, "There's no more I can do for you. The next step is a psychiatrist." Mm-hmm. So I come home obviously more depressed, severe anxiety, to the point where I had to have medication for that. And it just always bothered me that I could not figure out why this was happening. And then I started developing eczema, and which kept getting worse. Arthritis in my thumbs, to the point that I had to use braces every day and sleep in them. I couldn't even use a pen to write. I couldn't hold anything. I had to give up my painting, what I love to do. Sciatica, really bad. Severe dry skin, to the point that dermatologists kept trying every kind of cream. Nothing would really help, just dry, itchy skin. And hair loss. I started losing my hair. Terrible brain fog, to the point that I thought I was in early stages of dementia. I had cared for my mom for 5 years with Alzheimer's. So that kind of was always in the back of my mind with having possibly dementia. I couldn't stay focused. I couldn't carry on a conversation because I couldn't carry out my train of thought. I gave up most of my friends. I just pretty much stayed home because I could not socially interact with people because I couldn't keep up with conversations. And then my blood pressure started going up to the point I was almost on medication. And one day, out of the blue, a man selling plants at a flea market, no reason, just started telling me how he got off statins and what they did. So I'm still a low-fat diet at this point. So I got to researching them, and I thought, okay, I'm going to ditch these and figure out how. The reason I was put on the cholesterol was my cholesterol numbers were good. It was just preventive heart attack. So I finally just threw the statins in the trash, and the difference in 3 days with my brain fog was, I couldn't believe it. So that made me research more. And I'm like, there's got to be more than this. So I started doing a lot of researching, and I joined some statin groups on Facebook. And one day we were traveling to North Carolina, and I was reading comments on this Facebook page, and somebody on a statin page, and somebody recommended to watch a video by Dr. Ken Berry. So I thought, well, I'm riding in the car, I'll do that. So I watched one of his about cholesterol, and I'm like, okay. So I started watching more videos, and I saw one on carnivore. And so I listened to it, and I'm like, and reading the comments, and I looked down some more, and I told my husband, I took my earphones out, and I told my husband, you have to hear this. So I played it for him. And I said, I think I want to do that. I said, I think it will make a difference. Because we're big meat eaters anyway. I did not eat a lot of, my downfall was sweets, desserts, because I love to bake. So we stopped at Walmart, bought a set of scales, went to the grocery store, bought a bunch of ribeye steaks, went to our house in the mountains, and we started carnivore the next day. And the difference was, and that's how I got to carnivore. And of course, now obviously a lot of doctors and things that I still learn every day. But that's how I come about getting on carnivore. And I've not regretted it. It's been an amazing journey for us and our health.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, I'm glad you found that this and helped you improve your health, because it's, a lot of things you were experiencing, depression, arthritis, skin changes, the mental cognitive, impairment. A lot of people would say, well, that's just kind of normal getting older. I mean, everybody sort of.
That's what my doctor told me.
Right. It's just normal. We see it so frequently. So just, it just sucks to be old, or something like that. You get that, it's just unlucky genetics, whatever. And we just can persist in this low-fat dogma. And I'm really surprised. Well, I'm not surprised, but it's a little sad that they put you on a statin just prophylactically. Well, I said, well, your cholesterol's fine, but we're going to put you on that anyway. And to see that when the drug did make a difference for you, at least in your perception, at least with the cognitive stuff. And so when you go into this carnivore diet, were you worried about it? Or, was it something you're like, well, I'm concerned some bad things might happen? Or how did you transition? Was there any problems transitioning to the diet?
No, actually, I was very excited to try it. Years ago, we had done keto. I was a little familiar with keto. We did it for a short time when we were really young, when Dr. Atkins' book became very popular at that time, but we didn't really stick to it too much. So I was a little familiar with it, and just, having that 10 hours driving in the car, and I researched the whole time. I kept listening to videos and who other people recommended, and cholesterol videos. I just really got into it that trip. And it made the time go by very quickly. And I was actually very excited. I couldn't wait to try it. I was very excited. And it was an easy transition. I had no issues like where a lot of people do. I didn't have tons of weight to lose. I really didn't lose a lot of weight. I probably still could lose weight, but I'm too lazy to try to figure out the fat ratios in the neck. I'm just too lazy to do that. But I'm healthy now and very content with life, so I don't stress over that too much. But it was a very easy transition for me.
Hey folks, it's Dr. ShawnBaker here. If you guys are enjoying these success stories, well, you can become your own success story. You can do that by heading over to Carnivore.diet. You can sign up for a free 30-day trial and get started today. We're looking forward to supporting you. Our community is wonderful, and we'd love to see your success. And with regard to things like the eczema, the joint pain that you're having, the thumb pain, have those things gotten better for you?
Well, my hair, I've never had thick hair, but it was bad enough that my hairdresser said, I don't know what you're stressing over, but your hair is really falling out. I mean, that's how bad it was. My hair has stopped. Most of that it's growing back in better. The dry skin, itchy skin is gone. And another thing I forgot to mention was, of course, I'm 72. So in the last few years before Carnivore, every time my husband kind of too, we bumped, our skin was so thin that we get huge bruises and it would actually tear, skin would tear. We rarely have that now. We get a bruise occasionally, but it doesn't get real big, like our whole arm, and the skin we have to really jab ourselves to tear our skin. The eczema's gone. My skin's always been dry, but it's a normal dry now. The thumbs, I'm back to painting. I don't have to wear braces. They're still there. I'm sure the doctor says she thought it was arthritis. A little just minor pain is there, and I'm aware of not injuring them because I can't hurt. But I can hold a paintbrush all day long. I move furniture, I sand furniture. I do a lot of things with my hands and up and down. I have no joint issues. My sciatica is probably 99% under control. Still have a little anxiety, but I know that's my lifestyle. The depression is pretty much gone. I have some days better than others, but I'm on absolutely no medication. The blood pressure is normal. The only medication I take now, and I just recently started, was the bioidentical hormone. But other than that, I take no medication at all. I never really take Tylenol or anything like that.
Well, at 72, you're in the minority because the majority of Americans are on something like 4 or 5 medications by that time. So it's great to see that. And so how long have you been on this diet now to achieve these remissions for all these issues?
I started in July 1st of 21, so a little over a year.
Got it. Okay. And I think it's pretty obvious to say your quality of life has improved significantly. Is that fair to say?
Oh my goodness. This way of eating to me has been an absolute miracle. That's the only way I can describe it. You can't really even describe it to other people talking to them because I think they think that I'm crazy or in dementia or something because you can't explain to people how well they can feel. Until they feel it, they can't grasp it. But it is amazing. And my son had rosacea very bad. He's been on an actual antibiotic for probably 10 years to keep the rosacea under control, plus topical. He no longer takes the antibiotic, and he no longer does the topical. And he just has a little redness on his face, and that's all. My husband was on prescription for indigestion, prescription meds, for acid reflux. He is now off of that. He has to take a Tom occasionally. He's not 100%, but he's working on it. So we all, and him, the same thing. He was on a statin also, and he quit. And since, I mean, for both of us, the brain fog improved. But once we started the carnivore, it just like escalated to feeling like I was 60 again or 55 or something. That having that brain fog lifted from us to where he was to the point of he was ready to give up riding his motorcycle because he didn't trust his judgment. And he just a couple months ago come back from a motorcycle trip he took out west on his motorcycle. Every year he does that. And so he's been able to continue to do what he loves to do. So it for my whole family, it's been a life-saving miracle.
Yeah, it's wonderful to hear. And it's, like I said, you're about the 5,000th person I've heard with something like this. I see this very commonly. So it's great to see. Let me just ask you a little bit of details about what does a diet look like for you? What does a week's worth of food look like for you typically?
For me, I will eat usually I don't eat till between 10 and 12. I always eat eggs. I usually eat like one egg and 2 egg yolks. I will have most of the time ground beef with that. Sometimes I have bacon because I could eat bacon all day long. Then I don't eat again until usually around 5. And it's basically beef. We eat a lot of ribeye. Sometimes short ribs, roast. Rarely ever. I lost my taste for chicken. We don't crave chicken. We don't crave pork that much. I don't eat seafood, but I do fix fresh seafood for my husband and my son. Sometimes I have boiled egg with that. Butter. Eat a lot of butter. I make my own beef bone broth, and we have a cup of that every night with our dinner. And that's pretty much it. And I stay very satisfied. Sometimes when it was time to eat, because my son's always wanting to eat, I'm not even that hungry, but I know I will be if I don't eat. So that's pretty much what I eat. Once in a while, if I have a fresh avocado, I'll eat a slice of that, but not too often.
Yeah. And so mostly just kind of beef and eggs, it sounds like is most of the diet, a little bit of bacon in there as well. So, how, as far as, are you going out of your way to eat only grass-finished beef, or are you just eating kind of stuff at the supermarket, or does it make a difference for you?
I do both. Sometimes if I can find a grass finished, I will, but if I don't worry about it. Yeah. I do both.
Yeah, and that's what I've seen. I've seen people be successful.
It's hard to find that.
And then, are you taking any additional supplements? Do you take, multivitamins, vitamin C, vitamin D, anything that in addition to your diet?
The only thing I take is vitamin D3, I think, and K2, it's an oil. And I do take CoQ10 for the fact of being on the statin so long. I've kind of read where that might be a good thing to do. So that's all that I take. Okay.
And you've been off the statin now for a couple of years, is that right?
Going close to 2 years. Yeah, close to 2 years.
And then, I mean, of course, the inevitable question is, well, what's going on with your blood lipids, your cholesterol, and things like that? Has it gone up significantly since you switched?
No, my blood pressure is very normal. In fact, the last time she took it, I was so shocked. I asked her if the machine was working. I don't remember what it was, but it was down. I always had low blood pressure up until probably just 3-4 years ago. And the highest it ever got was, I don't remember the bottom number, but it was 160 on the top. And I really just tried to make myself work on that. And my blood pressure was back how it was when I was in my 40s. I feel my cholesterol numbers are good. They're all, and the tests are all below what they consider normal, except for my LDL, which is 3, I think a little over 3 something. And my doctor wasn't too happy about it, but when I left my other doctor because she didn't like what I was doing, I, made it understood to the new doctor under no terms will I ever go back on a statin. So she tries to give me flack about it when I go in there, but I'm like, I'm sorry, but I'm not doing it.
So your
LDL, good.
Your LDL cholesterol, you said, is over 300 though. Is that?
Yeah, it was 320 something, I think, the last time I had blood work.
On LDL. So that's quite high. I mean, most people would say that's you're in the top 1% of LDL. So the question for me would be, given that, you were on a statin, and given that some people will say that LDL cholesterol is an increased risk for heart disease, and there's a lot of evidence that suggests that, although there's some people that debate that. Would you ever go back, given your quality of life, to a low fat, statin lifestyle?
No.
Yeah. So
no, I absolutely would not. I would take the way I kind of feel. I'm 72 and I'm not going to live forever. And if I live 2 years healthy and happy, not being on a statin is better than living 5 years or 3 years or 4 years the way I did before when I was on them and before I ate carnivore. So no, I have no plans to be back on a statin or change the way that I eat.
Yeah, and fair enough.
Sometimes when I get like, oh gosh, I don't know if I can eat any more beef. And then I remind myself of how far I've come. And so that makes the meat look much better.
Yeah. It's, I can see once in a while you want to change things up. But, you mentioned, like I said, very papery thin skin. And I can remember as a surgeon, sometimes we'd have patients and just moving them onto the operating room table. Sometimes you could tear their skin. And it was, you hated to do that. And we try to avoid it. But some people just literally touching them with the slightest pressure and their skin would just fall off. And this is, so we get older and older. And one of the things, the elasticity of our skin and the protein in our skin kind of dictates that. And so it's nice to see that as you get on your diet, you start feeding yourself good nutrition, your skin gets stronger, which is what it's supposed to do. It protects us from, from all the pathogens out there. When our skin is broken, we can get very sick. So that's good to hear. Are you getting any, so, you said you have your husband and then your handicapped son. Is there anybody else in the family or friends that are affected by this and saying you shouldn't do this? This is bad for you. Are you getting a lot of that feedback?
Not really. I have 2 very close friends. We've been like sisters since we were 13 years old. They really don't agree with this long term, but they really don't they're fine with how I eat. I see their health deteriorating and, I try to encourage them and remind them, but, they're not ready yet. But no, my other son that is married, him and his wife do keto. So they're a little familiar with it. But no, so far, no, I haven't got a lot of negativity. People don't understand it and they don't agree with it, but they really don't give me any negativity about it.
Do you find it to be prohibitively expensive relative to what you were eating before? Or is it kind of about the same at this point?
Well, probably it would be close to the same because before I always would buy fresh vegetables, not processed. We didn't eat much. Even when we ate a lot of vegetables and things, I didn't do a lot of processed food because I was just raised to cook fresh. But probably with what I spent on that and all the sugary things that I baked and made and we bought and ate, and I lived on Diet Coke. That was baking and Diet Coke was the two hardest things I had in giving. And I just, honestly, the last few months just gave up the Diet Coke. That was a struggle. But probably when you consider everything we put in our mouth, Carnivore is probably cheaper.
Yeah.
Because we don't do trips to the ice cream, to Dairy Queen and all those places anymore.
Yeah, interesting. I saw an analysis on Dairy Queen's ice cream, and it's kind of scary what's actually in Dairy Queen ice cream if you look at the ingredients.
Yeah.
So, let me ask you about that, because you said you were a baker, you enjoyed sweets. We all, most of us do. I mean, it's kind of it's something that a lot of people have issues with. How did going carnivore, did it change your desire and your cravings for this thing? Was it something that allowed you to sort of kick that?
Yeah, I don't really crave it anymore like I used to. Sometimes when you actually really miss something and you really want it, and because in the beginning, I think everybody kind of like just, I want a bite of this. Most of the time, it's just like the Diet Coke, that when you actually taste it, it's not what you remembered it being, because your taste does change. And I just, when I want to go and bake something, I just kind of find something else to occupy my mind. I do miss doing that, but I know we can't eat it, so I don't do it. But no, I don't crave it near as much as in the beginning.
Yeah, and when you went on this diet, did the family follow you, or were they reluctant, or did everybody switch together? How did that work?
No, my husband, when I had him listen to the video on Carnivore, I said, I want to do this. I said, I'm not that into vegetables anymore. I said, I want to try it. And he said, okay, let's do it. And like I said, we stocked up for a week of ribeyes, and that's what we did. And he has great metabolism. He's small frame. He lost a lot of weight. We actually had to incorporate a few carbs back on him. He got very thin. But he had no problem. And of course, my son eats what I cook, so he had no choice. He had to go on it. But no problem at all. They were all for it. And most people, like I say, even though they don't understand it, they're happy that we're having the health results that we have.
Yeah, and you mentioned your son was handicapped, and I can't remember if you said what was affecting him. But has the diet helped him in any way?
Yeah, he's mentally handicapped. Yes, it's cleared up like his rosacea. He seems like he's, because he is on depression and anxiety meds. He had a mental breakdown about 15 years ago and had to be put on medication. And I don't know if he would ever be able to I would be too scared to try to wean him off medications, because he's self-sufficient as far as eating and bathing, and he goes to neighborhood and rides his bike, but mentally he's probably only very young. He can't read, write, do math. There's no, like we would say, common sense. Like if you say jump off the roof, he'd probably do it, because he could not process that would be dangerous. Mm-hmm. So for him, we've seen, and he had a lot of, I don't know if it was IBS or what, with foods. And by removing most of the vegetables, especially because before we started this, we had a salad every night, and we had a lot of gut issues with him. That has stopped, and that has been a major blessing for me. Now, when we go away, we have a caregiver that will take care of him, and of course, he sneaks and he'll buy snacks at the local store and all when he has money. So it's hard for me to keep him really strict. But when he's not with us and gets eating things like processed food, just things he's not normally having, we go right back to these stomach issues with him. But as long as I keep eating the way we're eating, we have absolutely no issues at all with that.
That's
so it has really improved all of our lives greatly.
Yeah, it's good to hear. As far as like for your, how much do you eat multiple times a day, 2 meals a day, 1 meal a day? How much do you typically eat?
I eat 2 meals a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I find now that I've been on it this long, I don't want to eat as much as I did in the beginning. And I know a lot of it with age, you're active, because I'm not as active as I used to be. So I know my appetite's not there, but all three of us, we eat 2 meals a day.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because you said you really never really ate a bunch of processed food, even before it was even before it was meat and a lot of vegetables. But you did. How often were you making these baked goods, these sweets? Was that an everyday thing, or was that just something occasionally?
Probably not every day, but we would have. I'd always have cookies, or we had usually ice cream, or
Mm-hmm.
every day we would have probably something sweet, even if I didn't make it.
Yeah.
Not a lot. More my husband and son, they're more like, I was a little more picky with the sweet stuff and what I liked, but they would just, whatever was there, they would eat it.
Mm-hmm. And, some people would say that, if you just cut the sweets out, you'd have the same result. Do you feel that it was necessary to remove the vegetation and the vegetables to get the results you got?
Oh, I think so. I think it's all a part, because I know when we first began, of course, we lived on the scales, not real, we hadn't learned enough to, it was all the learning process. And if I did, like, we'd go out to eat, or I would have part of a dessert or something. Even now, if I do, like, I can tell in my body that's, even if it's a vegetable, I can tell in my stomach, the way my stomach feels, everything, when I eat a vegetable or anything with sugar in it.
Yeah, it affects you negatively.
So I think definitely they both play a big role in our health.
Do you, outside of your sort of immediate family and friends, do you talk about this? Like, do you do like Facebook or social media or anything like that? Is that part of what you do?
Not really. I have a Facebook page, but I'm rarely on it. I think I'm too busy listening and reading everybody else's and reading studies.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I haven't done anything like that. No.
When you go to your physician and they say, well, your cholesterol is high, are they noticing all the other benefits that you've seen, the weight loss, the decreased inflammation, the sciatica, all those things?
Well, the doctor I have now, she's relatively new. She's new since I started the diet. So she doesn't have a lot of my history. But my gynecologist and also my dermatologist, the last time, because I only go there like every 6 months, and the gynecologist once a year. When I did go to them, the first thing, she walked in, she says, "What have you been doing? You look wonderful." And I'm like, "Well, I changed the way I eat." And she says, "Well, tell me about it." So I did tell her. She says, "Well, your skin," she says, "you look great." And it was kind of the same thing there. The new doctor that I go to, she's for my age, very happy with all the results except for my LDL.
Right.
She accepts keto type of eating, but I don't think she's very familiar with the carnivore way of eating. But she's very pleased. Now, the doctor that I left, I had her for 13 years. She's going to put me on statins. And when she found out I was doing the bioidentical hormone treatment, she got very upset. And she told me that in what I was doing, that I may as well go out on the street corner and buy meth.
By meth?
And
Okay.
yeah.
Oh.
And I said, what? She repeated it again. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I couldn't. I mean, she said a lot of very unkind things to me that day. But that was one of the things that she said to me.
Interesting.
So,
yeah, I mean, I guess maybe she's trying to make the analogy that maybe it's not as well regulated, perhaps. I'm not sure, but interesting. Yeah, it just seems like, well, anyway, I'm glad you found a physician that's willing to work with you in a little more appropriate way. And how important is that for you to have a supportive physician or healthcare provider, into your trying to do this stuff?
That means a lot. Because it's just, when you go there, you don't want somebody to look down on you and try to make you feel bad for what you're doing. And I just feel a doctor should be more open-minded when people come in and they feel better. Well, like the new doctor knows that I'm no longer on depression. She knows that because I was taking the medications when I went to her, and she knows that I'm no longer on them. So, I mean, she does recognize the improvements that it's made. And that's very important. If I had to dread going to the doctor because I was going to try to be intimidated or put down, I probably wouldn't go.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. And
I would be doctorless.
Right. Sure. Yeah. I can see that for sure. So overall, I mean, if you could say, how much has this impacted your life? A little bit, a lot, change in diet, has it made a big impact on you?
Oh, yes, definitely. Life-changing impact.
So, I like you said, I don't see you going back to another style of diets. Are there, like you said, you couldn't even hold, because your thumbs are so messed up, you couldn't even hold anything. What do you foresee? What do you, do you have goals for the next, part of your life? If you're here for another 20 years or something like that, what are the things you hope to do?
Well, I hope I can still travel and be able to live on my own, or, with, not be crippled or in a nursing home is what my goal is. Just to be able to travel and just enjoy each day as much as I can, whether I'm just watching TV or whether I'm walking, no matter what I'm doing, just to feel good and know I'm doing the best that I can and being as healthy as I can be. That's my goal, really.
And it seems like the diet has allowed you to do those things, whereas before it sounds like you weren't feeling very good. Is that fair to say?
Oh no, it was, I slept a lot. Like I said, I used to line dance. I used to be very active with a group of women. I just felt like when I was with them, I'm like, I can't cope with this. I can't deal with it. It's too busy. It's too noisy. I don't even know how to have a conversation anymore. I just stayed home. I really did not go. The group that my husband rides the motorcycles with a lot, I just, I hated going to any functions because I just felt so inadequate. And I thought they must just think I'm totally dumb because I can't even talk. But I don't have any problems with that now. In fact, my husband tells me, when I start talking to somebody about carnivore, he tells me I need to stop talking. I'm talking too much. So
have you met, like you said, you had your best friend that you've kind of hung out from since age 13. Have you been able to convince her, or is anybody else you've been able to sort of influence?
Not really. We tried. I'm trying with her. She worked in the medical field, so she's kind of still with the low fat, lots of veggies, and she's kind of on that train of thought. But every time I'm around her, I keep reminding her how great it is not to be on medication. And so I'm hoping to bring her around, but, you know, we tell everybody, but nobody has started yet. So hopefully they will.
Well, I suspect some of the people that will watch this video, you'll impact some people. So thank you for being willing to share your story and having the, you know, having the open-mindedness just to try it and see what happens. And that's something that I think that many people, you know, it's like is there any harm in trying? And, you know, some people would argue about the cholesterol aspect of it, but again, it's, you know, it becomes down to a quality of life type of thing. And I mean, clearly your quality of life is better. So Lycia, thank you for Lycia, I'm sorry. Lycia, thank you for being here.
I've answered all of them. It's fine. Most of the time I get called Lisa. I just answered all of them.
No, Lycia. So. I try to pride myself in pronouncing people's names correctly, and sometimes it's but thank you so much.
Yeah.
And have a wonderful day. I think I'll be back in Florida in November. Looking forward to get back down there. So anyway, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Have a great day. The rest of you guys, thank you for being here, and we'll be back tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.